You know the drill. Your executive says, let's do an offsite. And suddenly you have 12 tabs open, 3 spreadsheets going, and a bad case of decision fatigue. This is where Troop shines, helping you plan without the chaos. Whether it's an offsite, a team retreat, or a last-minute meeting, Troop lets you compare locations, budgets, and travel options to make confident decisions. Troop keeps you organized every step of the way. So no more chasing info or juggling last-minute changes across 5 different platforms. If you are ready to take control of your meetings, head to leaderassistant.com/troop. That's leaderassistant.com/troop.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Fargotstein, and today's leadership quote comes from Robert Greenleaf. The quote is, "The servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead."
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Hey friends, welcome to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's episode 347, and this is your host, Jeremy Burrows. And you can check out the show notes, of course, for this episode at leaderassistant.com/347. And today I'm speaking with Kirsten Fargotstein, and Kirsten is a veteran executive and personal assistant with over a decade of experience supporting celebrities, founders, and ultra-high net worth individuals across the entertainment industry, nonprofits, luxury fashion, and tech. So, Kirsten, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, like what city you're in and what you like to do when you're not working.
Sure. Thank you for the kind introduction. I'm Kirsten. I am currently in Phoenix, Arizona, but I bounce between Los Angeles and a couple other places depending on where clients are. And I am the founder of Collective Consulting, which is a boutique agency that basically helps train and mentor aspiring and seasoned assistants, working in those fields.
Love it. And what do you like to do when you're not working?
When I'm not working, I'm a bit of a homebody, to be honest with you, because it is 24/7. But I would say I love to read a good book, do a little baking, maybe some gardening if I can get it in, and
Nice.
then just spend time with family and friends.
Love it. Love it. Well,
Yep.
we're going to talk a lot about the industry you're in and kind of supporting high net worth individuals and celebrity assistants and all that. But first, let's just hear a little bit about your story. How did you end up getting into the assistant space? And, tell us a little bit about your assistant journey as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I actually had quite a unique journey into it. My first real job in entertainment in LA specifically was working as an assistant, but for a senior talent publicist. So she worked with like A-list actors mainly, in television and film format. And so that was kind of the crash course into the industry, if you will. Absolutely loved it, learned so much, but then decided after a few years that I guess you could say the assistant publicist realm was not really my calling because it was
Mm.
just a bit of a monotonous routine, and I needed a little bit more challenge in my everyday life where I was jumping from one thing to the next. So I transitioned from there then into executive assistant work for a talent manager, actually, in music and film and entertainment. And then
Okay.
everything sort of spanned from there. I went
Yeah,
from one talent to the next.
I was going to say it seems like that industry is very, very much all about who you know, right? Like,
You know what? It is and it isn't. I'm the rare person who started out with zero contacts.
okay.
So I didn't know a single person when I first got out there. I had a couple of friends who had industry connections, but no one gave me really any help because they were trying to make their own way. So
Mm.
I just sort of, put my head down and was blind, applying to a bunch of jobs. And then at one point, I decided, actually, let's take a different route with this. Let's be strategic instead of just, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I ended up kind of researching, I guess you could say, the top kind of clients that I wanted to work with.
Hmm.
So if I was going into publicity, who were the people I wanted to work with that I could see myself really supporting their projects and getting the message out about, what they're working on and things of that nature. And that's when I then zeroed in on the person that I reached out to for my first job. And the timing just happened to line up where she was looking for an assistant, and I got an assistant position working for the president of a veteran talent publicity agency.
Wow.
So yeah, it's pretty wild.
So what was any tips on if anybody else wants to do that research? And then even like, what was it was because it was kind of a cold reach out,
Yeah,
right? It was a cold
it
email.
was.
Like, what did you
So
say?
yeah, well, I don't even remember what I said at this point, but I'm sure it was something along the lines of, hey, I've looked into your client roster and you're the kind of publicist that I would love to work with or for eventually, and learn, get guidance and mentorship from you as I work my way up in that career role. And the research was really just me kind of thinking about, well, who seems like a fun person to work with, who seems like they're working on projects that are of the caliber I want to work with, because I have a very kind of classist view when it comes to entertainment, I guess you could say. I wanted to work with the best of the best and the top, top creme de la creme folks. So I was really picky about, the types of folks I wanted to align myself with once I did get my start in entertainment. And I think it's just looking at it from the long run in that perspective that it really helps, because people can see you're serious about the work and you're not looking for the perks of the jobs necessarily,
Right. Yeah,
which
totally.
is key, very key in that world, because it is a lot of work behind the scenes that people just don't realize.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then as you got into this work and this industry, what did you, and maybe even how your current setup is too, like,
Mhm.
did you move from, principal to principal, or did you add, like, hey, I'm working with this person, but maybe they don't need me as much, so I'm going to do part-time here, and then I'm going to get another one to do this stuff for them there, and like, how did that
Sure.
all come about?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, when I was first starting out, it was really just trying to find the right fit. So I was looking for one person to stick with. I didn't really want to jump, because it was so hard to get, a full-time job already as it was in the industry. Now it's completely changed as well. But yeah, I would say the main thing starting out was really just zeroing in on, again, who do I want to work with now if I'm moving into that assistant specific role of not just working behind the desk, but also helping them out in the field a little bit more, or handling more of their personal life, in addition to their business projects. So I ended up going and working with, as I said before, a talent agent. He worked with people like Madonna and U2. So it was like the top of the music side coming from the film and TV side.
Hmm.
Um, but he was also very tapped into all of those people. And then from there, I ended up actually not staying with him long term, because I decided that I was a little burnt out at the time with the industry, having worked there for 3 or 4 years and just driving myself into the grindstone.
Mm.
Um, so I actually went home to Arizona for a brief bit, and I was like, I'm going to try my hand at maybe being an assistant for nonprofit, take a breather from entertainment for a minute. And I did that. I ended up going and working for the two co-founders of this national nonprofit, which was a beautiful experience and very rewarding. And they actually had entertainment ties still. One of them dated
Okay.
Elvis back in the day. So they were on the older side of things, but still had very significant ties. They were actresses way back in the day. Um, so yeah, so it was ironic that the entertainment thread was still there through everything.
Wow.
Um, and then I was like, I'm not done though yet with LA. So I ended up going back to Los Angeles about a year later. And that's when I worked for talent, more specifically, started working for talent. So Judd Apatow and Leslie Mann, who are a very popular director, producer, actress, wife, duo.
Hmm.
And their family worked with them for a while and then ended up landing longer term with an amazing person, Danny Harrison, who is the son of the late George Harrison of the Beatles.
Mm.
And he was an incredible boss. I mean, I can't say enough good things about him. I'm still very close with him even to this day too. But it was just awesome. I mean, got to be a part of the projects that, he was tied into, and we worked briefly with Peter Jackson's team on some stuff. So it was just fun because I got to do a little bit more than just kind of the administrative, you know, personal assistant type stuff. It was more mix of 50-50 both. So yeah. And then from there it was just sort of a couple other small gigs after that, because the pandemic relocated them at one point.
Mm.
So I was like, I could continue working with them, or I could try to find something that's again back to that full time. Because at that point, as you asked, that's when things kind of were like, do I add another person or do I go back into more full time? And I was like, I'm going to continue to do some full time work a little bit longer, and then finally I was like, I think I'm going to start my own thing. I think I'm getting tired of working for these other people 24/7.
Right, right.
So yeah, so it's been a very wide-ranging career and very robust career, but each thing has been so rewarding and so like life lesson learning, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Every single role is completely different.
Wow,
Very
that's awesome.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to hear a little bit about collective consulting, but first, is there any, I know working in that industry, there's obviously a lot of confidential stuff and a lot of,
Hmm.
NDAs and there's you got to be sensitive to all that, otherwise you won't get another
Sure.
job in that industry, or you know what I mean? But is there any like fun, crazy stories? I'm sure you saw a lot and dealt with a lot of interesting situations, but is there anything that you can say or can share that
Sure.
you'd be willing to share that would be kind of a fun story during that time?
I mean, I have a few. A lot of them are usually when I'm on the road. I feel like,
Right, of
it's
course.
usually when you're traveling when everything goes crazy and you're sort of like, yeah, everything's up in the air and you just have to figure it out on your feet. But I remember the first time I met Danny's mother, which is George's widow, Olivia Harrison. Absolutely amazing woman. We were traveling all together, and Danny and his partner were then splitting off at one point, and they were going to go on another part of a trip. And so I was supposed to travel back with Mrs. Harrison, Olivia, and we almost missed the flight back. And we were running through the airport. And it was my first time meeting her too. So I was like very nervous because, oh my gosh, she's going to think I'm totally inept. I can't even get her to the plane on time. But it wasn't even my fault. We had stopped to kind of like window shop, you know what I mean? And we just lost track of the time, and so we ended up going. We got on the tram leading us from one part of the airport to the next, and she turns and she looks at me, and I'll never forget. She goes, "If it doesn't work and we can't catch this plane, we'll just hop something to Portugal or something like that, and we'll go have a weekend for ourselves." And I was like, "Oh wow!" I was like, "She's awesome." I was like, "This is a great lady." Like, everybody was saying like, "Oh, make sure you're really minding your P's and Q's, and you want to make sure you're on time and everything." And she was just like, "I will go with the flow." But she's used to it too because she was an assistant herself, I think, back in the day.
Okay,
So it
nice.
was yeah, it was a lot of fun to kind of get that glimpse into, somebody that's been in that industry too and is a part of literally music royalty, to just be so down to earth and so
Hmm.
relaxed. She was great. And that family was great. But yeah, we've had some fun scares even during the pandemic with them too. They were traveling and it was literally they were in the air while countries were being closed down. So we
Oh,
were
wow.
trying to like charter helicopters and make sure we could get them across borders before the countries were like, you can't, you got to go back because you're not allowed at this point with the pandemic shutting everything down. So
Wow.
we've had some interesting journeys, that's for sure, but
Wow.
all fun, very fun.
Yeah. So currently then, do you still support any principals, or are you primarily doing the agency where you coach and
Both.
consult?
Yeah, both. So I'm in the process right now of working freelance for some of those previous clients as well as new clients.
Gotcha.
But then I also have the consulting agency. So it's kind of a 50-50, I would say.
Okay.
Half of my time is spent, working with aspiring or even seasoned assistants or potentially clients that are looking to hire someone, but they're not really sure how to approach it. And they're tired of going through staffing agencies. I don't staff, but if they want help in trying to determine what's the best way to approach a solid long-term assistant, I
Mm,
help them with that. And then the other side of it is working almost more on a project basis for different clients when they need me. So if someone needs me
gotcha.
for the holidays, I'll fly in and help. Or if they're working on a big home renovation, I'll go out and help with that. If a work project or tour is coming up and they need extra assistance, I'll go and assist there.
Okay, cool. So you kind of have your home base, and then you just can, on a project by project basis, travel and be
Yeah.
on site for someone, and in that
It's
season.
almost like a fractional assistant
Yeah, yeah,
in a
that's
way.
cool.
I mean, it's not, but it is kind of. So it's kind of new territory actually,
Yeah.
which I think is funny because I think a lot of people would actually prefer that. I noticed a lot of the security personnel do that. A lot of security, if they're not full
Mm,
time,
yeah.
they'll come in and they'll help on specific projects. And I used to think, oh, that'd be so nice because then you don't have to, you know, early on in my days, I was like, then I won't have to deal with the politics of things and the teams and all of those different elements that can really drag you down over
Hmm.
time. But I never thought it would be something I would be doing, and here I am.
Nice.
So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hmm.
So, have you had situations where like one client says, "Hey, I want you in July to spend 3 weeks with us here," and then the other client calls and they're like, "Hey, I want you in July to spend this." Like, have you had conflicting where you had to
I
like
have,
choose or get a bidding war going or what?
yeah, you know what? Most of my clients are pretty good for the most part. They don't really require me like at the same time. And if they do, they understand that I'm working with other people too.
Hmm.
Um, just because it is more project based and it's not full time anymore. And I've built up the reputation with a lot of these people, so they know what my work style is like, and they know that they can depend on me regardless of where I am. But I think that that's also key for a lot of assistants to know. It's like you don't have to be so wrapped up in one way of doing things. You can absolutely adapt. And most of the time, if you've built the rapport with a client, they are very understanding. Um, some clients can be much more demanding. It just depends. But no, usually award season gets busy because
Mm.
you've got a lot of people wanting glam scheduling and things of that nature, which can be very Tetris maze style. But for the most part, clients are pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, super interesting. I was in the nonprofit world for
Mm.
12 years or so, and then I now have been in the software tech AI space for 9 years, and so it's always fun to hear because I do personal assistant stuff as well. I've always supported this. Well, most of my 19 years as an assistant, I've supported the C-suite CEO, and
Yes.
so founder CEO type. Um, I've done executive assistant on the corporate side, but also personal
Yeah.
assistant stuff. So I've had a little bit of that, those personal kids or travel or whatever house manager stuff, nanny stuff, all the
Yep.
everything in between. Had that experience, and my current executive has 4 kids under the age of 13 and sold his last company for almost $1 billion and
Wow.
is, you know, like the most down to earth, like you would not think you met him. You just think, oh, he's an engineer, like somewhat nerdy, super family oriented dude. And he doesn't seem like one of those successful tech exit people from Silicon Valley, which part of that is because he's from St. Louis, Missouri, in the Midwest.
Yeah, totally different.
Midwest style. But
Hmm.
anyway, so I've always been fascinated on the celebrity side just because I have done a lot of that personal assistant stuff too, and
Sure.
I can relate to. And I've had different celebrity assistants on the podcast over the years. But what would you say is just give us a glimpse inside that world? How is it different than the corporate assistant world? And then maybe even what you've seen maybe has changed since you started in this industry. And then we can get into like if somebody's listening is interested in getting in that world, how can they land a job? But I'm just curious, give us a little bit of inside scoop on what it's like to be a celebrity or a high net worth assistant.
Sure. Well, I think it's actually kind of funny because a lot of people think that the celebrity stuff is super different from the corporate. And I have to say, I actually don't think it's necessarily one area that's different.
Hmm.
It's truly individual. So, one celebrity could be very much operating like a corporate C-suite person, because their team around them has that set up and is really built structured in that way. But I would say the biggest, if you were to really break it down, the biggest differences between celebrity and more of the corporate or ultra high net worth, even individuals that are business fear focused. Um, the celebrity side, you have to remember you're working truly with talent, like creative talent. And so their clock and their mental like structure is nowhere near even what a visionary or a founder, billionaire entrepreneur would be like.
Hmm.
They're not thinking about it from more of like a rational business minded standpoint. They're thinking of things more artistically. And so when you're speaking to them, it's a different kind of approach. You're definitely kind of catering to more of an emotionally reactive or responsive person typically. So you have to sort of read the room in a different way. And it- in any of those roles, it's about learning how to anticipate what your principal or your client is going to be needing over time. So, yeah, celebrity, I would say it's a little bit more emotionally reactive typically, because if you're working with an actor, an actress, musician, it's much more creative. If you're working with someone who's ultra high net worth, who comes from more of the business side of things, they're going to be a bit more structured. Still going to be kind of, crazy ideas and want to figure out how to make the impossible work, but it's a different way of approaching them. You're not approaching them from like let's just check off this list and get through it. You're kind of like, okay, well, this is the mood we're in now. So we're gonna,
Mm,
tick off these 4 or 5 things, and then we're gonna give it a beat, and then we're gonna come back to it
right.
in another couple hours after they've had a nap, or, they're not gonna wake up till 1 in the afternoon. And so then that's when we need to get them their most productive, So it's just a different schedules, different mindset is what I would
Yeah.
say on celebrity side versus ultra high net worth business type people. Um, and even then, the business type people, it really depends on the team. If the team is structured and built well, whether it's celebrity or ultra high net worth, like C-suite, um, then you're able to accomplish a lot more because they're more compartmentalized. But if the team is sort of loosey goosey and free flow, like the client or the principal, it takes a lot more finesse.
Hmm.
I don't know if that answers your
No,
question.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, is there certain, I know entertainment industry is kind of a broad bucket, but is there
Mhm.
a certain industry within the entertainment industry or a certain, category under the celebrity bucket that you enjoy working in more? Are you an executive assistant in the New York City area, or do you like traveling to the New York City area? Then join me on Thursday, November 13th at 3 p.m. Eastern at the W New York in Union Square in New York City. I'm hosting Leader Assistant Live, a workshop for executive assistants and administrative assistants. This live workshop, training, and networking event is going to feature myself as a speaker, as well as my friend Becky Kawapuni. We'll have about 1.5 hours of training, some group discussion, Q&A, and then a happy hour party for networking with fellow executive assistants. Registration is only $197, and it includes snacks and drinks and the training. To sign up, visit leaderassistantlive.com/NYC. Again, that's leaderassistantlive.com/NYC. We hope you'll join us on November 13th in New York City.
I always enjoy working on the film and TV side because it's creative, but it's more structured than the music side. Music is truly very loose. Like, unless you're on tour, you are sort of just like at the whim of what the emotional state is in order to record an album or whatever the commitments are outside of album, making and touring.
Right.
And by the way, that's not to say almost everybody I've worked with. I actually learned this early on in my first job at the talent PR agency. One of our clients, he was an actor, very, very well-known actor, but he was also starting a side business with home renovations and like doing a lot of home stuff. And he started a business on the side doing that with one of his business, one of his best friends became a business partner. A lot of people are very much like that. So even though they're very creative, some people are also very business minded, but they sort of go in separate directions when they're doing that. They have to turn off one brain in order to tap into the other. So it just depends. But I do think that TV and film has a bit more structure because there are so many people that are involved in production on a daily basis that you really can't afford to be behind schedule, upwards of an hour. Like, shouldn't be behind schedule at all, but you really shouldn't be behind schedule or not around to commit to something because so many other people are relying on you. So I like those fields. They're also more community, like collective driven in a way. You're working collaboratively with a big group of people, which I find so much fun.
Yeah, I guess because like a film project, there's so many more people involved than an album, right? Like,
there's a lot of people involved with the album, but that's truly reliant on like one person coming to the table and performing versus an ensemble cast in a production, and you have a lot more people who are responsible for things at a higher level in production than on an album too, because again, it's much more personal in a way.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Yeah.
So, okay, so if somebody listening is like, I've always wanted to get into the entertainment industry. I've always wanted to get into more of the, out of the corporate environment and more into personal assistant, celebrity assistant, ultra high net worth individual assistant, what would you recommend? How should they, maybe two parts of the question. One, how to land a job as a celebrity assistant, and two, how to know if you're cut out for that type of job in that industry. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I actually talk about this a lot with a lot of aspiring assistants. Let's start with the how to know if you're cut out for it, because I think that's the most important. I would say that you have to have that passion. Like, if you don't have the true, genuine love for whatever the craft is that person is working in, it's not going to be a long-standing job for you, because you almost have to love it more than the person you're assisting in a way, because you are in a way becoming an extension of them when you are assisting them. So you're walking a mile in their shoes and you're anticipating what they're going to need and how they're going to think, what questions they're going to ask. There's actually a movie that came out fairly recently that I thought just about nailed it on the head. It's that Dakota Johnson movie, The Higher Note, with Diana Ross's daughter. I can't remember her name. Tracy Ellis Ross, I think, is her name. But almost perfectly nailed it. I mean, to the culture of assistants and everything for celebrities.
Is it called The High Note?
The High Note. That's what it is. Yes.
Okay. I just looked it up. I'll link to that in the show notes for sure.
Yeah. It's a cute movie. It's not entirely accurate. There's definitely some liberties they took with, how much sway the assistant has in that world, but there are quite a few things that are pretty spot on in there, even all the way down to the hiking and gossiping about your client to your friends that are also assistants, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but I would say that that's like a perfect example of understanding sort of, you know, if you have that passion for what the person is working in, you're most likely to continue on and not just be an assistant, but grow within that field with that person. So a lot of assistants end up becoming kind of like strategic partners in a way because they become the trusted right hand to these people. So the first thing is definitely have the passion for the industry and not, you know, don't think about it as what perks can I get? Can I be famous off of this? And that's not what it's about, even remotely. Most of the time, A-list celebrities are not going to want you in their circle if you're focused on the perks and all of the
totally.
bennies that you're going to get. You know, they want to know you're working there for them and for that reason. But that's one piece. Another piece is yes, some clients you absolutely, probably most clients, you'd have to have a rather tough skin, you know, be able to deal with constructive criticism. And then just truly be an empath. I mean, I think the emotional intelligence of assistants is kind of the unspoken hero that a lot of people don't talk about as much. Um, you have to be able to read the room and understand what your client is feeling or kind of mentally going through so that you can accomplish your job. So those are some key things I would say that are absolutes. You have to be emotionally intelligent. You have to have kind of a thick skin, and then you have to have a strong passion and hard work ethic. Without having the fairy tale in your head. As far as how to land the job, it depends. Now is actually a time where I think that you don't have to be in an entertainment hub anymore in order to land the job. So, you know, it used to be you had to go to LA, New York, maybe Atlanta or Nashville. Those are like your key hubs, sort of, within the United States. Outside of the United States, London, Paris, Toronto, those were like
Hmm.
kind of the key areas. But now, I mean, there's so much stuff that's changing. You've got hubs that are opening up in New Jersey again, and you know, you have hubs opening up in Las Vegas and up north and like Montana. You know, all these productions are going there, and there's just so many changing things. So you can really get the job from anywhere. You can even do it remotely. It's harder to do it remotely if you haven't built up a reputation already. But
Hmm.
if you have, as a seasoned person, you could absolutely get remote work. And then as far as the rest of it is concerned, you know, I used to always operate off of look at the traits of the industry that you're wanting to go into. So in entertainment, for example, that would be like a Variety, a Hollywood Reporter, a Deadline, you know, an IndieWire, any of those kinds of publications. That's where you're going to see who are the people that are rising up in the ranks that might need an assistant in the future, that are not at that level yet, but might be going into it. That's where you're also going to be able to start organically and authentically networking with people and not just coming out the gate asking for a job, but
Hmm.
like start talking to people about the industry that they're in, even if it's in tech, you know, TechCrunch, you know, all of those different types of publications. It's a gold mine of understanding where jobs are going to be popping up in the future. And then hitting job sites like Entertainment Careers. That's how I landed my first job in the industry.
Nice.
That wasn't, yeah, it wasn't the publicity company, but it was the very first job I had. Um, and, you know, other places like that. There are staffing agencies that can help you land a job, but a lot of them won't look at you if you don't have previous experience. And
When you say
it's also
previous,
difficult.
sorry to interrupt, but when you say
That's
previous
okay.
experience, do you mean previous like celebrity, ultra high net
Yeah.
worth experience, not just like corporate assistant experience, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, because they're going to want to see that you know how to handle yourself with those types of personalities.
gotcha.
And that you can, that's almost more about the personality presentation and the emotional intelligence than it is about the skills of knowing how to book travel, knowing how to schedule a
Right,
calendar, things of that nature.
got it.
And the same thing goes too with ultra high net worth. It is similar in that way as well.
Makes sense.
So, but yeah, the staffing agencies are helpful, but know what you're getting into if you do go down that route because it doesn't always give you longevity. It could be more of a revolving door syndrome if you're not careful.
So like as in there's a lot of contract jobs that
Not
they're kind
even
of moving in
contract
or
jobs. You know what? The reason I actually started my agency initially was because I saw some agencies that they were matching people that were not equipped for the clients they were being matched to, and vice versa. The clients were not a good fit for the candidates they were putting in front of them that they were wanting to hire. So that's kind of what I mean by revolving door. It could be something that you land the job, it's not contract, but it's not going to be a good fit in the long term, and you're going to be out the door in 4 months or 3 months when the staffing agency contract
Mm,
ends.
mm,
And the client doesn't have to pay again for another search, you know?
gotcha.
So yeah, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, this is super, super helpful. When you do your training, so now that people have a little bit of tips on, am I cut out for it and how do I land a job? But what are the skill gaps? You mentioned emotional intelligence and
Mhm.
um, those kind of soft skills, but what specifically do you teach or train assistants who are trying to get into this world or who are trying to level up in this world?
Well, it sort of spans a little bit of everything. So I give them a basic knowledge of what the industry looks like and what the landscape looks like, because that's the first thing. You're stepping into a world that is so vast. It's like a spider network of like so many different offshoots of things, giant web of connections and how people are interconnected, and what is the role that an agent, a publicist, a manager all play, and how does that
Mm,
tie into the assistant? Then you get to the personal side. How does the house manager, the estate manager, security, there's so many different pieces to that puzzle. So I teach them first a little bit like ground based knowledge of the industry and how it all pans out in relation to an assistant, whether it's personal or executive, and then whether that's celebrity or ultra high net worth, because they are slightly different. Um, and then I kind of go from there into the personality elements that you would need to have. So being highly organized, being emotionally intelligent, understanding how to be proactive, and that's, attention to detail is key. All of those things are what make a great general assistant. Then you go into that more nuanced layers of, okay, now how do you book private charter, not just commercial
mm,
flights? And how do you handle ground transportation and have a backup plan and work with security to make sure that things are advanced? House manager, how are things advanced? If the manager needs something, what's the protocol? So it's kind of stepping you through all of those different scenarios, if you will, and just prepping them so that they know what they're going into.
hmm
Um, I also think that there's going to be in the future, I'm hoping to launch maybe a YouTube like series that sort of breaks down lingo for assistants and
Oh,
how that all pans out. Because a lot of, communication in those roles is a very unique way of speaking.
yeah.
Um, so that's something I'm also looking to add into kind of my coaching regimen as well, a bit more. But yeah, it's just sort of those layers, giving people those layers, and so that they understand what they're walking into and they don't panic as soon as they get in front of someone who they've seen on TV or on a concert stage or one of the wealthiest men in the world. And you're like, what do I do? How do I book a yacht? You know, how do I arrange all of these? What's the closet organization scenario look like? Or, how do I set up a phoner with the publicist for a press junket? All of these different things.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've always thought about that of like, oh, I'm sure I could do some celebrity assisting. That'd be kind of a fun world to work in.
Mhm.
But then I'm always like, I get down to the details of the practical side of like, well, I've never booked a charter plane and
And
I've,
it's not hard. It
and
really isn't hard.
yeah, I mean,
It's just
it's just
it's
stuff
just
that's
getting
new. Yeah, it's different and new. Yeah.
it's that, and also too, it's once you know who to go to, you're set. Once you have your
Oh,
network
right.
of people, you're set because everything then runs smooth as, smooth as butter. But until then, it's kind of like you're sort of just a fish in water trying, or a fish out of water trying to figure out, where do I even go for this contact for this restaurant reservation? Or,
hmm
how do I get a hold of a VIP luxury brand person because I need this purse in a matter of hours before they take off on this flight? So
Right.
it's just it's growing your network through that experience, but it's also learning how to think quick on your feet. And if you're more prepared up front for what those scenarios could look like, I think you're going to have assistants who do better in the long run with the clients. And you're going to have clients who aren't so crazy because they don't have a new person, like a new face in front of them every 3 to 4 months,
Right.
which also helps their team, their bigger team, because they're not panicked.
Yeah.
They don't know who this random stranger is in their personal space all of a sudden.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a big red flag when you're looking for a job with this industry and this high net worth people and all, is if they have a high turnover on their assistant.
Yeah. I worked with someone, I actually saw someone speak about this on LinkedIn. And he was someone who said he'd worked for somebody that was real difficult and had like 13 assistants in 12 months or something. And I've worked in a similar capacity. I've worked for someone who had like 4 or 5 assistants in 3 months. And people were not sticking. And then I was like the next longest standing assistant that they had had. And I remember when I came out of that role for myself, the staffing agency that had placed me there and other staffing agencies that had heard that I was going to be looking at the time I was using a staffing agency. They were like, if you can work for that person, you can work for anybody. Like they had earned a reputation within the staffing agency world of being notoriously difficult. And so, you don't want to work for those people. My heart goes out to those clients because I always think, oh, that poor person is just in so much turmoil that they cannot get an assistant to stick. But at the same time, there's definitely some red flags there
Right. Totally.
that you want to avoid.
Totally. Awesome. Well, Kirsten, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a great conversation. Lots of
Thank you.
You've had a great career and interesting industries, and so I appreciate you sharing a little bit of that journey. Where is the best place for people to reach out if they want to connect and say hi and maybe learn more about Collective Consulting?
Sure. So I have a couple things. My website, you can go to www.collectiveconsulting.com. It's still kind of getting built up a little bit more. It's going through a rebrand a bit, but you can definitely reach out to me there. And then I also offer a free weekly newsletter called The Inner Circle. And every week, just about. Sometimes I change it up a little bit, but usually it's giving you an entertainment brief. So like the top 3 to 5 stories in entertainment for that week, with assistant takeaways, like why it's relevant to assistants. An ultra high net worth brief is also in there, and then an assistant Bible, where I usually will have an interview with either an assistant that's working in the field to give real life advice and tips, or I will interview and spotlight a vetted partner that people might want to work with in the future, whether that's yacht brokerage companies, security detail companies, things of that nature. So if you want to get more info and aren't quite ready for training or to take that next step, that's a great resource to check out.
Love it. Love it. I'll put all of those links in the show notes at leaderassistant.com/347. Thanks again, Kirsten. Thank you so much for your time and letting us explore a little bit inside the world of celebrity and ultra high net worth support. And it's been fun connecting, and we look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com.
The ping-pong back and forth game of manually scheduling meetings is unnecessary and inefficient in today's automated world. It's time to embrace calendar automation for increased productivity and capacity. You Can Book Me by Capacity is my favorite automated booking solution. It's a game changer for me and my executive. You can manage scheduling for your entire executive team, send automated reminders, add buffer time between appointments, and much more. You Can Book Me integrates with your existing Microsoft and Google calendars so you can add automation without disrupting your current workflow. Go to leaderassistant.com/calendar to learn more and sign up for a free trial of this powerful scheduling automation tool. That's leaderassistant.com/calendar.